So I'm Anna, or Anna the Bookkeeper. My hometown is Espanola, New Mexico. I actually am currently in Kentucky. I just moved here a couple of months ago. And my nationality is Hispanic. My father is from Mexico and my mom is from Los Angeles.
Tell us who Anna is outside of the business.
So Anna outside the business is a mom. I live with my boyfriend. I do have three kiddos. Two boys and a girl. I have two boys on the spectrum, so they are autistic. I do all the things, but also when it comes to myself and what I love to do, what helps me keep myself grounded, I love to be out in nature, whether that's just sitting on the front porch listening to the birds or out hiking. Outdoors is my thing.
Share with us a little bit about your work history. Well, have you always been a bookkeeper, what you're doing now, or not?
No, I have not always been a bookkeeper. I actually started working at the age of 14. Where the bookkeeping stems down is from a family-owned business that my grandfather owned. It was a printing business. But since a very young age, I did go into the accounting side. I worked at banks for many years. I actually, fun fact, got my degree in health information technology. So I was actually going to go a whole other route with medical coding and running a doctor's office. But as far as my work history, I've literally done it all. I've worked from banks to pharmacist to CNA, thinking I was going into the nursing field, but I don't have the heart for that. I can't see people go. In my whole indecisiveness, I even, based on my family history, I even studied a semester of criminology to go into probation for juveniles. So
what were you doing in your last job before you made that pivot?
So I was actually heading in the direction. I started college. I got the opportunity to work for an oxygen company to be able to use and start learning those skills that I needed for medical coding and health information management. So I got that opportunity, and that's what I was doing. I finished college and started working at a cancer center doing medical coding, and that's what I was doing before. My whole life changed, of course, when my son was born and the autism word came out. My life pivoted at that point, and that's where I went back and resorted to what I knew, which is bookkeeping.
Okay, so two questions. Did you like the job that you were doing, the coding? I mean, it sounds like that's something that you were going full force in.
I'm going to be honest with you. I liked it in the fact of when I was going to school, what the job entailed. It was more of like an office job. I had already been in so many positions that I dealt with people, especially at banks, dealing with people's money. I was like, you know what, this is really not for me. So I love the whole fact of just having an office job and sitting there in this little cubicle, per se. But now I think back at it, interacting and networking like I do, being an introvert or a recovering introvert, I feel that that probably would have not kept me happy. I probably would have not enjoyed that corporate job for very long.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question is, what was the catalyst that first got you started to think about leaving, let's say, corporate?
So it's interesting because it wasn't a choice. It was more of a, I have to do this now. Back then, for me at least, autism just was not in my vocabulary. I didn't know nothing about it. So when my son was born and that came out that was a possibility, I just started thinking about what that was all going to entail and what his needs were going to be, and what as a mom could I do to help him to be able to be a successful adult. And everything was directing me in the way of he's going to need me and he's going to need more support. I remember when I did have that corporate job, was already a single mom. So when he was already in school since the age of 3, I would literally sit down at my desk sometimes, and even in the early morning, they would call me and say, hey, your son had an accident, or do you need to bring him an extra pair of clothes, or things like that. So I had to leave my job. Yeah. So I thought to myself, no, at some point, this is just not going to work out. And that's where the pivot happened.
At the time that you were thinking about all this, did you already have an idea? Since you've done many things, did you already have an idea of where you would go in terms of?
No, I didn't. I actually did all the things, just a small little list. I literally sold, during COVID, I sold jewelry on Facebook Lives. I've done cake baking at home, sold tamales at home. I've done the whole Facebook ads, selling those. I've literally did it all just to see what it was that was going to help in that moment. Mm-hmm. Until one day on TikTok, I saw my bookkeeping coach, and it was just kind of like one of those answered prayers, and I followed her, and it was just history after that because it was something that I knew. I was like, this is It was meant to be in all directions.
And was it, when you said it was meant to be, did it, they always say, do something that comes naturally to you. So was this that for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I knew, I remember like it was yesterday, I wrote down a list and I said, what is it that I'm good at? So right before I started bookkeeping, I actually started a small business of reselling. So I would sell on Poshmark, Mercari, eBay, and things like that. So the reselling thing started kicking off, and it was like, I didn't enjoy the reselling part. I enjoyed the numbers. I enjoyed organizing my inventory. And then after that, I was like, I made this list, and it was always the memories of my grandma and what we used to do together, and I wrote those things on that list. So praying and praying, it was just all of a sudden it was literally that one TikTok that just made history. I think that an important part to mention in my story is that I became a single mom. Me and my kid's dad separated about 8 years ago, I believe it was. And at that moment, it was just like I had to make something work because it was just going to be me. And I think that at that moment, it really wasn't even fear because I knew what I was capable of, because in my life, I've been through so much that I've overcome. It was the lack of support system that I had that scared me. And the small support system that I did have was just like, this is not what you should be doing. You should be doing this, and you should stay where you're at, conform to what you know. And I think that for me, all that sunk in, and I think it was the limiting beliefs for me that scared the living daylights out of me.
Or how did you work through that to make your decision to say, I'm going to do it anyway?
I'm not going to lie. I just said I'm going to do it, and I'm going to figure it out on the way.
Yes.
At the moment when I invested in my bookkeeping course, I literally did not even have the means to be paying for this course. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to figure this out. I will work on what I have to work on, sell what I got to sell. But I knew that if I kept thinking about it, I was not going to do it.
Perfect.
At the beginning, it feels like it's that way, but it's funny how your support system comes along. It comes along in the process.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Do you remember your last day at your corporate life?
Yes. It was one of those typical mornings. I showed up. I felt super pumped that the morning had gone great. I sent both, because at that time I had 2 boys and then I had a baby. So everybody was just off where they needed to be. I walked into work, sat down for 10 minutes, got a call from my son's school. And I had only been there for 2 weeks. And granted, the position I got was a lottery position. So I had to work my butt off to be accepted into that program. So I said, you know what? If I don't do something, if I don't leave this the right way, I'm going to end up leaving the way that I don't want to leave. So that was when I was driving to my son's school. I remember I said to myself, you know what? Leave the right way, because this isn't going to go in the direction that you think it is. It's okay. I kept telling myself, okay, it's okay.
So let's fast forward to the transition. I'm going to say 3 words, and what best describes your transition? Is it good, bad, or ugly?
I'd have to go with ugly. And I think that I've only been a CEO, Chief Everything Officer, like you say, for a year. And it was an ugly ride. It was one of those, in October, I think you can even recall, it was just one of those, I was going to just throw everything up. It's been a rocky road. It's been ugly.
But I just want to say, you pushed through. I just want to say that, because yes, there were those moments, but when you came back like, I have this and I'm doing this and this happened and whatnot. So I'm glad you pushed through. I think that is just a characteristic of entrepreneurship, to be quite honest, because I also go through that. So do you feel you're stronger afterwards when you bounce back, or is it really an effort to go forward?
I think for me, it was a little bit about getting to know myself. And again, going back to the imposter syndrome, that's exactly what it was. Is that this is an unfamiliar territory. Don't go that way. Just stick to what you know. So I think that for me, once the mindset started changing at that point, it made me so much stronger, because now I still go through that. My business is still growing. Every day my business pivots, and I can now say to myself, no matter what, I'm going to get through it, versus, oh, let's just give this up.
Do you remember your first day of entrepreneurship?
Yes. I actually remember right after I finished my course, literally the same day that I finished the course, because remember I was telling you, I literally said, I'm just going to go full force with this.
Yeah.
So I finish one thing, I start the other. So the day that I finished my course, I registered for my LLC,
Yeah.
and I got the paper in my hands. I put my first post out there and got my first client the next day.
What?
So that it was just kind of like one of those things, like confirmation that this is what I needed to do. And I still have my same client, and I'm so grateful for them. She's a childhood friend, but yeah, a year later, they're still my client.
Oh, Anna, that is really good.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. What a great story. You know, whatever's
I don't
happening.
like to recall the sad parts about it, but I do remember now that you were saying that when you read it, I remember about the whole support system thing, that when I did get the confirmation email, hey, you now exist, you now are a legit business, I literally had no one to share it with. I literally got up, did a happy dance, told my daughter about it, and just started working on my business.
There you go. What skills were transferable that you had in your previous corporate jobs in entrepreneurship?
Going back to my grandparents' business, I worked with my grandma back then. It was the old-fashioned green book ledgers, and so I of course had those skills as far as what needs to be done and what the job entailed. I think that for me, the organization skills is what helped me. So working in an office, knowing what it was going to take to organize everything and have everything in one place. And I think I'm even still learning all that. But my skill set for myself is just that love for numbers and organization. But corporate skills would be the whole putting it all together part.
Looking back, what was something that you wish you did while you were in corporate now that you're in entrepreneur life?
For me, I've always been a hands-on person. So I've always been, if there's idle time, I was with my manager. We were working on her stuff just to kind of like learn new skills. I think for me, it's the opposite direction, and that would have been socializing more. I think the whole, not just you really in corporate don't network, but socializing, practicing, speaking to people, and that's kind of one of those things that I've struggled.
Yeah, because of the introvert aspect that you
Hmm.
have.
I was to myself, tell me what I got to do, and I was in my corner the rest of the time.
Yeah. Throughout this time, did you have any guidance or support?
I went full force. Unfortunately, I didn't have that amazing support from my family, and like I could tell them stuff and they would listen. I mean, a lot of times it was counterintuitive, right? So I would get negative stuff, and I thought that that negative energy was impacting me in a bigger way than it should. So no, there at the beginning, no, I didn't really have much support. So everything that I was doing was based on having a support system online and with people that I was meeting pretty much literally across the world, because I know you in France. But now, of course, my life has changed, and I do have a significant other, and that's a person that I share all the things with, and he listens. And sometimes I even tell him, I'm sorry, I'm being nerdy. And he's like, no, it's okay. But like now, of course, just life has taken a different direction. And I think that things have just fallen into place, and the support system now, because my business is still new. So I think for me, it's still the whole sharing things with my new business.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
If you had the chance, knowing what you know now, what type of support would you have if you got the support back then? What kind of things would you have asked for?
For me, if I would have had the support system, I think that I would have put my pride aside and asked for more help when it came to my children.
Yeah.
I've literally brought my business from the ground up with my kids literally. I mean, they're older now, but like literally still on my lap. I mean, they really require a lot of me, especially being a single mom. And I just, for me, struggled with that asking for help. And I think that's probably what I would have changed.
How has your coaches, because you said you had your bookkeeping coach, and I know you have a coach now, so how has having a coach helped you in your business?
I do have coaches. I've had, of course, the branding coach, a bookkeeping coach. I've actually had a financial coach. So I think that for me, it was just realizing that I didn't know it all about business and that I needed them. And I think that having that piece is what set it apart, what made it what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, speaking numbers, a business takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years to actually start profiting and getting where those initial goals were set, right? So For me, I think that where I'm at, had I not had those coaches, it probably would have taken me about 10 years or just quitting at some point. But having a coach was super important because it helped me to not only figure out what I needed to do and do it, it was the accountability piece.
Yeah.
And it was somebody there guiding me through it and giving me that support that I didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so of course I am a bookkeeper. I actually provide a lot of services. My business is pivoting in a different direction because of the Spanish speaking. When I started my business, I remember having this conversation with you. I wanted my business to gear towards the Hispanic side of it. And that's just giving them that opportunity to interpret all the things and all the languages that the IRS sets. And my business is finally pivoting in that direction. So I help small businesses. I help small businesses from businesses that are starting all the way to that have been established and haven't been doing anything correctly because somebody else told them that that's what they should be doing and it was incorrect. So my business is geared towards that. I partner with them to be able to help them achieve some kind of life balance because for me, I know the importance of being a single mom and still being present in my kid's life. And I know that in the Hispanic culture, it's also something that's super important. And I want to help to be a part of them achieving that.